You can tell I'm excited about this video because I've put on makeup. I even painted my nails. I needed some of that emo kid realness in my life for this video. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling myself. Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm doing something a little bit different. I recently watched Death Note on Netflix for the first time. The anime, not the terrible Netflix film. And I really enjoyed it. So much so that about a third of the way through I started thinking, I wonder how you could adapt this into a musical. Maybe I'll do a video on how I would adapt Death Note the anime into a musical. No sooner had I said this thought out loud that it turned up on my YouTube suggested videos. Not only is this musical a thing that exists, there is a US concept album which includes Jeremy Jordan. Not only that, it's been produced multiple times in East Asia, and the pro shot of the 2015 Tokyo, Japan production is on YouTube, heavily edited by the poster, but it's there. You can watch the whole thing. So when I saw that, I was like, I'm doing a video on this. I finished watching the anime and immediately watched the pro shot that is available on YouTube, which I will link below. Listen to the cast album. I've been listening to it for days to do a review of this musical for you guys. And I've just had a lot of fun doing a deep dive into this show, to be honest. Now, because of the title of this video, whatever I end up titling this video, but Death Note is going to be in the title, you might have ended up in this video being like, what the hell is this? In which case, hello, my name's Michaela. I am a UK theatre actress. I trained in musical theatre. I've been in loads of musicals. Musical theatre is what I do. As well as being a trained musical theatre actor, I also have a degree in music, so I'd like to think I'm not completely talking out my butt when I talk about musical things. Yeah, that's who I am. Hi, nice to meet you. A few disclaimers before we start. So I'm gonna start off with non-spoiler stuff, but I deep dived when I was preparing this video and watching and listening to all the things. So I am gonna have a spoiler section. I will let you know when that's coming up so that if you're interested in watching the anime or the musical, you won't be spoiled. You can click out before that happens. Also, obviously, this is all just gonna be my opinion. If you disagree with me, that's fine. You don't have to leave any hate in the comments. Although if you do that, that will help my engagement. And as you can see, my channel is tiny. So if you wanna leave hate comments and help my engagement, feel free to do so. I don't mind. And lastly, Death Note is a Japanese story and a Japanese intellectual property. Death Note the musical, the production that I'm basing this review on, was in Japan with Japanese actors. Therefore, there are gonna be a lot of Japanese names and I don't speak Japanese. I'm going to try my best, but I apologize in advance if I pronounce anything wrong. So I'm gonna put timestamps in the description because I have a feeling this video is gonna be a little bit long, so good luck with that. I'm going to start off with info about Death Note, the manga, the anime, and the history of the musical. Then I'm going to go into a general non-spoiler review of the musical from my perspective, my thoughts on it, and whether I think it's worth a watch or not. And then I'm going to go into the spoiler section, which will be spoilers for the musical and the anime because there are big changes between the musical and the anime, so I kind of have to talk about both a little bit. But we'll be talking about the changes, pacing, music, other things that I think are worthy of mentioning in a more intensive review. So yeah, if you are down for that, then keep on watching. I did make some notes, so if I look down at any point, it's because I'm reading what I've written. What is Death Note? Death Note is a manga that was written by Tsugumi Oba and illustrated by Takeshi Obata. And its original run in Japan was from December 2003 to May 2006. It was then adapted many times, most notably in an anime series. The anime series was directed by Tetsuro Araki and was written by Toshiki Inoue. And the original run of the anime was from October 2006 to June 2007, and it was 37 20-minute episodes. The basic plot of Death Note is that it follows this teenager called Light Yagami, who is a genius, and he finds this supernatural notebook called a Death Note. And the Death Note gives the user the power to kill anyone just by writing down their name and visualizing their face. And then what follows is a battle of wits between Light and this renowned detective called L while they try and catch this serial killer. History of the musical. The musical began development in 2013 with a US team. Music by Frank Wildhorn, lyrics by Jack Murphy, and book by Ivan Menchel. For those of you who might not know that much about musical theatre, the book of a musical is like the non-singing part of the script, so the bit that's like a normal play. A US concept cast recording was recorded in 2014, but to date the musical has never been produced in the US or in any English-speaking country. The world premiere of the fully produced musical was in Tokyo, Japan in 2015, and that production was directed and produced by Kuriyama Tamiya, and the Japanese lyrics were written / translated by Ako Takahashi. I do not know if Ako Takahashi also wrote the translation of the book, like the script, or if they just did the lyrics. Since the Japanese world premiere, there have been other productions. There were 2 productions in Seoul in South Korea in 2015 and 2017 respectively. There was also a Japan / Taiwan tour in 2017 and a second Japan tour in 2020. That is the history of Death Note, the original manga, and Death Note, the musical. So here's my non-spoiler review. Compared to the anime, at least, because that's the version of the original story I know, I haven't read the manga, they did change a lot. However, I do think that the musical does stay with the spirit and the themes of the original story, despite the changes that they inevitably had to make. In terms of the performances and the characters, Teppei Koike was brilliant as L. Not only in terms of what the creative team did with the design and the costume of L, which was very, very close to the anime, but his performance was very, very close to L. He got that kind of focused, kind of odd, deadpan aspect to L's character really, really well, despite having to belt his tits off with rocky songs. Brilliant, brilliant performance. The role of Light was actually double cast in the 2015 Japan production. The Light in the version that's available on YouTube was played by Hayato Kakizawa, and he has an amazing voice. Obviously, if you are familiar with the musical already, you'll know it's a very high MT rock tenor part, and his voice was very, very good. However, I also thought that his portrayal of Light's transition and his descent, I think, was portrayed very, very well in various ways. Also, more in the terms of writing, the characters of Misa and Soichiro are very, very close to the original characters in the anime. The only major change with Misa's character is that rather than being a model / actress, she's like a J-pop star, which makes sense because it's a musical and, you know, let's make our character a character that sings. Makes sense. Set design. Set design was very, very minimalist, which made sense to me because in the show they go through various different locations throughout Tokyo, like you're in the police station, then you're in Light's bedroom, then you're at a pop concert. So it makes sense for the general set design to be quite simple so it can be very versatile. There's a lack of spectacle in the musical, which was actually commented on in the original reviews for this production, which I agree with. I wasn't mad at it because I don't go to my musical theatre for spectacle. I go for the story and the songs and stuff. So I wasn't really too fussed. However, thinking about it, they could have put more spectacle into the production, especially seeing as you've got the supernatural element of the Death Notes and all the stuff that comes with that. I really, really liked the use of the ensemble. I liked that we got more of an insight as the audience into the public reaction to the serial killings of all of these criminals. You do get it a little bit in the anime, but it's kind of through certain point of view characters, whereas in the show we get it from the public via the ensemble, which I really, really like that we get that insight. There's also some really cool moments of like chorus movement. They could have used that more, I think. And I think in general, the ensemble could have been used more. However, I do think if they did use the ensemble more, it could have potentially changed the point of the story, because the story is very much about Light versus L. And if you put too much of the ensemble and everyone's reaction, it would change that dynamic and we'd lose that focus. So it's one of those things where it's like, it would have been cool if they did that, but then would it be the same story? Maybe not. Music. It's a musical, got to talk about the music. So the music style is like musical theatre pop rock. There isn't a lot about the music that is specific to the world of Death Note, but having said that, the music is hella catchy, and over these last few days, the music has really grown on me. Hurricane and Stalemate have been going around my head. Hurricane is a bop. Song has flaws, we'll get into it, but it's a bop. Also, Mortals and Fools is another one that's in my head. My favourite song by far though is Honor Bound, which I know it's the Old Man Act 2 song, and that's the song that everyone is meant to skip in the soundtrack. It is literally my favourite song. From first hearing it, love that song. Love it. That's the music. Catchy as feck. Can't deny. I also love that they set it in Japan. Pretty sure Frank Wildhorn, Jack Murphy and Ivan Menschel are not Japanese, so they could very easily have been like, it won't work with American audiences, we need to set it in the West or in a different country. I love that they kept it set in Japan. I do also wonder if that's why we haven't had an English version produced yet. I wonder if American producers either think A, there wouldn't be an audience for Death Note the musical in the US, or B, which I think is probably more likely, that they don't think they could get enough East Asian actors to play the roles, let alone specifically Japanese heritage actors to play the roles, which I wouldn't be surprised by, but also America's a big country and there are lots of East Asian actors. East Asian actors are the least represented in musical theatre, arguably. So I would love to see an English language production with an East Asian cast of this show. I think that would be brilliant. But I have a feeling most producers would be like, there aren't enough East Asian actors / East Asian actors that we could use as star vehicles as well, because that's another thing producers like, is being able to attach names to things. And I think it's a shame, because I definitely think there'd be an audience for this, definitely in the US, and definitely for just, you know, the emo musical theatre kids of the world, like me. Like 16-year-old me would love this musical if it was around, and I knew about it before. I was not a teenager when this came out. So in conclusion, I do think it's a really good musical and I would recommend checking it out. I think if you hate musical theatre, don't watch the musical because you'll hate it because it's a musical. But if you like Death Note and you like musical theatre, I definitely think it's worth a watch. Would recommend checking it out, especially if you like more contemporary musical theatre as opposed to legit musical theatre. If you like something that has a bit of an edge to it, if you like darker themes, this would definitely be for you. If you haven't seen Death Note at all and you're thinking about watching the musical and also watching the anime, which, can I just say, I would definitely recommend watching the anime. It is amazing. Watch the anime. But if you haven't seen either and you want to watch both, what I would say is the endings of them are very different. I'm going to get into that in a second. I basically watched the musical straight after watching the anime. So the anime was firmly in my head, and with the anime in your head, the ending of the musical can feel a bit underwhelming. That was definitely my experience. So if you want to watch both, I would say either watch the musical first, because it's not going to spoil everything in the anime. There's lots of stuff that is cut from the anime to put into the musical, so it wouldn't spoil it for you. And I think the ending of the musical is more satisfying with the musical's plot than if you see the musical ending with the anime plot fresh in your head. However, if you want to watch the anime first because it is closer to the original version of the story, I would say give yourself some time after finishing the anime before watching the musical, so you can have your reaction to the anime, feel all the feelings, digest everything that happens over those 37 episodes, put it away and be like, right, I'm going to experience a completely different version of this story and kind of watch the musical almost fresh, is what I would suggest. Let's get into spoilers. Like I said, this is not just going to be spoilers for the musical, this is also going to be spoilers for the anime, because I'm going to be comparing differences between them, so stuff will get spoiled. So if you do not want the story spoiled in any way, click off now. It's fine. Lovely to have you here. Leave a like if you want. Hopefully you've all gone. If the story now gets spoiled for you, it's your own fault, because I told you to leave and you didn't. Right, let's start with changes to the story. Some of them are really small, which I won't get into because that would just make this video a gazillion years long. But there were some major changes. The big change is that Mello and Near are cut completely. Broadly, the musical tracks with the anime right up to the point where Misa is arrested and interrogated and Rem convinces her to relinquish her ownership of the Death Note. I'm going to assume that you guys know how the anime ends because I'm not talking about the anime. If you don't know how the anime ends, go watch it, but I've just given you a massive spoiler. The way the musical ends, from the point where Misa relinquishes her ownership of the Death Note, Light deduces that L is going to kill Misa because L believes Misa is the second Kira and that Misa, as the second Kira, can probably kill him because he's seen her face and therefore somehow knows his name. The only way Misa's life can be saved and Misa can be happy, because Misa is obviously infatuated with Light, is if Rem writes L's name in the Death Note. Because of that, and Rem agrees, like, yeah, the only way to save her is to kill L, Light instructs Rem to write L's death out in such a way that they can set up this whole scenario that will clear Light's name of suspicion of being Kira. However, after L is dead because he shot himself because it was written in the Death Note, Ryuk writes Light's name in his Death Note because the prospect of just watching Light write people's names in the Death Note and kill them is boring to him. And so both L and Light die in this warehouse, and no one ever knows which one was the real Kira. On the surface, I'm not mad at this ending, and I understand why they did it. You can't introduce two characters who we've never met before halfway through Act 2 of your musical. It kind of makes sense that they needed to cut El and Near. The whole middle section where Light loses his memory, that would be really difficult to do in a 2.5-hour musical. Like, I get it. However, there are some negatives, in my opinion, to this version of how the story ends. So the big thing for me, and I think this is why I found the ending so underwhelming, having watched it straight after watching the anime, is that you miss the satisfaction of Light being beaten at his own game. I don't think this is as important just looking at the plot of the musical, because he doesn't do nearly as much. In the anime, he like deliberately loses his memory and then gets it back. He manipulates multiple people. He comes up with a plan, or is like okay with his dad shortening his own lifespan by getting the Shinigami eyes. He's alright with Misa doing that twice. He's alright with pretending to be in love with Misa and being in love with the reporter chick towards the end. He manipulates her, kills her when she is of no use to him anymore. He does some really awful stuff. Light is a bad person, and by the time you get to that final confrontation in the warehouse and Near's like, oh actually we found the real book that you swapped the fake book out for and we swapped that one too, and you're like, yes. And then when frickin' Matsuda shoots him and you're like, yes Matsuda, I mean, don't go crazy, but it's satisfying, right? You're like, that fecker got what he deserved. The ending of the musical just does not have that. L doesn't even get close to beating him before it's like, oh well, he's gonna die. The other thing is it slightly diminishes L's character in the anime. Obviously he dies in the same way. Rem writes his name in the Death Note to save Misa's life, but he's literally just about to do one final test, which would prove everything. It would prove Misa's guilt and complicity in everything that happened. And it's so sudden, it's like, ah. Whereas in this, it's like 15 minutes before he dies, we know he's gonna die. So it's a bit like, heh. And the other thing with this ending, because we know L's gonna die 15 minutes before he's gonna die, it kills the pacing of that ending and that whole final scene, which is just not what you want at the end of the musical. At the end of a musical, you want the pace to be ramping up. You don't want to be like, we're waiting for the end now because we know what the end is going to be. So with that, let's go on to pacing. I'm going to get back to that final scene with pacing, but just a quick overview of how the pacing works in this musical. So the interval comes when Misa gets her Death Note. We see the Death Note fall to the floor and we see Misa pick it up. Blackout, end of Act 1. Act 2, they show that moment again to remind us, you know, once we've had our interval glass of wine, oh yeah, she's just got a Death Note. And then it picks it up again from there. Because of this, they bring the introduction of Rem and Misa before they were introduced in the original story. So we meet Rem along with Ryuk in the second scene of the musical, they have the second song together as a duet called They're Only Human, which is kind of good because it gives us a contrasting character straight away between how Rem sees the world and sees humans and her attitude compared to Ryuk's. So that's kind of good to establish their contrasting characters. And then we meet Misa about halfway through Act 1. She's already an established pop star, so we meet her at the concert doing her performance, and she dedicates the song to Kira, which establishes her fanatical obsession with Kira. We don't know why yet, but we already established who she is, the fact that she's famous, the fact that she loves Kira. So that helps with pacing on that end. Also, another thing to add about pacing in general is that Act 2 is longer than Act 1, which is unusual. You want the pace to be ramping up and up and up and up. So it makes sense to have your Act 1 be longer than Act 2. And in Act 2, there are some specific pacing, I wouldn't go so far as to say problems, but like I had a problem with them, where the pacing is just like, guys, we don't care, let's get to the end of the story. Which, seeing as your Act 2 is longer than Act 1, we can speed that up by cutting stuff. The first place where pacing is really an issue in Act 2, like I said, is that final scene, the confrontation between Light and Elle. Not only is there no tension because we know Elle is going to die, in the middle of this tensionless scene, you have a song. There's a song where Light is basically monologuing about how he's won and how it's over. The scene literally stops for this song and it's like, dude, we don't have time for this. I have 3 suggestions of solutions to this. Obviously, I'm not a writer or a composer, so you can not agree with me if you want, but this is how I would fix that pacing problem, because it literally, I was sitting through that scene the first time I watched it through, and as soon as that song came, I was like, I don't want a song right now. Now is not the time where we want a song. We just want to get to the end of the story. We want to see what happens. So solution number 1 is just to cut the song. It's unnecessary. We don't need it at that point. Number 2 is don't let us know that Rem is going to kill Elle. In the previous scene, it is very, very obvious that Rem is all down for killing Elle. She might not be happy about it because she is also going to die, but we have firmly established that she'll do anything to save Misa's life. And I think literally in the scene, she's like, so is it just fine for me to just write his name? And then Light is like, no, you're gonna write it down exactly like this. If we don't know that Rem is going to write his name in the death note, the scene still has tension. Maybe you can have Rem be like, I love Misa, but I'm not gonna let you win this. And then like be like, okay, well, her death is on your hands then. Leave it on a cliffhanger, and then when we see Elle walking to the warehouse, we don't know if she's written his name or not. So we don't know if he's dying or not. So we're on tenterhooks to see if he dies. And then solution number 3 is to put the fake out gunshot in the middle of the song. When I was first watching the show and in this song, I honestly thought Elle's going to shoot Light. That was what was going on in my head, because I just couldn't understand why you were stopping the action for this pointless song. There is already a fake out gunshot. It comes right after the song, so we stop the scene, we have the song, then we carry on the scene again, then there's a fake gunshot. How much of a shock and a subversion of our expectations would it be if Light started his monologuing I've won song, and before he can really get into it, Elle shoots him? That doesn't happen. You don't start a song and then just as they're getting into it, kill the character who's singing. That's just not something that really happens. And for an audience, that would be so much more shocking than just having the fake out gunshot in a scene, because you're interrupting a bigger moment and it would make the song feel like it had a bit more point. So yeah, those are my 3 solutions for those. The other pacing moment where I was like, we really don't care, can we speed this along, was in the interrogation scene with Misa. Like in the anime, Misa's tied up, she sings a song about how you're never gonna break me and I'm never gonna betray him. After her song, Rem tells her about relinquishing the death note and her not having any more memories, and Misa's like, babe, do it. And then she does it, and then Rem has this it's so pointless. Rem has this solo called When Love Comes. Now, the actresses, both in the Japanese production and on the concept album, sing it beautifully. It's a wonderful song. It's Rem's only solo. We love that for her. But that song is so unnecessary. because we know Rem loves Misa. For the very first time Rem sings, she's hinting and singing about love and how humans love. Misa and Rem have a flippin' duet called Mortals and Fools, where the lyric is, love is for mortals and fools. It is so foreshadowed. We already know this. We know that she has strong feelings for Misa and she doesn't want her to die. And not only that, within the song and the lyrics, which we'll get to about this in a second, because this is not the only time that this happens, there is no discovery for Rem. The song isn't Rem actually discovering that she is in love with Misa, her discovering what love is, as if that's a concept Shinigami don't have, her reckoning with the implications. There is no discovery. It's literally a whole 3 minutes of Rem being like, I love Misa, and we're all like, we know. It's a lovely song, but dramatically it is completely pointless. So my two solutions for this particular pacing issue is, one, if you really want to have a moment with Rem admitting her feelings about Misa, incorporate that idea or that sentiment into the song that Misa has during the interrogation. You would have to rewrite that whole scene musically, but you could do like an intertwining of Rem singing about her feelings. You can have Misa being all like, I'm not gonna betray Kira, no. You can have the policeman trying to get the information out of her. Have that all one big cohesive musical moment. Or number two, if you don't want to do that, because that would be a lot of work, cut the song. I feel sorry for the actress playing Rem because you don't get a solo, but it does not serve the story at all. Let's go on to the music and lyrics. I have a lot to say about the music, guys. You could literally take out all the lyrics giving you context, and the music could be from any kind of noughties, early 2010s contemporary musical. There's nothing specific about this sound world at all. And I really think that is a missed opportunity because so much about the anime was so specific. The music in the anime is so specific. Rem and Ryuk's songs as the Shinigami, who are gods of death, there is nothing that separates their music from the music of the humans, particularly tonally, through their orchestration, through the scales that are used, nothing. There's difference in kind of the feeling in terms of character. So Ryuk's music seems very circusy. I've seen people compare him to like Beetlejuice, like that kind of character, but there's nothing otherworldly about it in any way. And similarly with Rem's music, hers is just very like unrequited lover, but again, nothing supernatural. And if you compare that to not so much musically, but visually, the visual world of the Shinigami compared to the visual world of the humans in the anime is so distinct. And I think it would be so cool if you could find a way to do that musically within a musical. I would have just loved to see that. In a similar vein, Light and L's music is pretty much interchangeable. Again, you could take out the lyrics giving you context, swap their songs about or swap their parts about in duets, and it would make no difference. I just think you could have played so much with orchestration. You could have played with timbre. You could have played with time signatures. I just think that would have been so cool, and it would have made the music so much more distinct. Some of the best musicals are the musicals where like you hear the music and you instantly know what that music is from. So just as the music doesn't really have any specificity, the lyrics in English don't either. And I want to specify in English because when a musical is translated into another language, the songs are never just directly translated. And basically, long story short, the Japanese lyricist is way better than Jack Murphy. I'm sorry. His lyrics are more specific and more character driven. And this comes out the best in the song Hurricane. I love the song in English, but as a musical theatre song, the lyrics in English are weak, and I'm going to demonstrate this by reading them out. For context, Hurricane comes straight after Light first uses the book and he realises he's just murdered a man with a magical super death notebook. This is how that song starts in English. Did I hear correctly? Did it really happen? Was it simply done by writing down his name? Killing indirectly, pen and ink and paper, writing is the gun, I only have to aim. Could this be the hour, unimagined power, waiting to devour who I say? Nothing inherently wrong about that lyric, but it is basically him being like, oh, did that happen? Cool, magical book. Awesome, let's go. I can kill people. This is that same section, the Japanese lyric translated back into English because I cannot speak Japanese. Is this a dream? If this is reality, then that makes me a murderer now. That's ridiculous. I can't take it. Should I throw this damn thing away? But if degenerate criminals die off, we'd all be better off. It is so much better. Trust me when I say the English lyrics carry on in the same tone. Like, there is no, like, really thinking about the implications of what he's done. He's just like, cool, I'm the hurricane, bring it, bitch, people are gonna die, brave new world. In the Japanese lyrics, even in that first section, the amount of thought changes. Then in the second verse, he acknowledges the emotional turmoil being a murderer for justice would be. In the Japanese lyrics, the lyricist is giving the actor everything that that character is going through. Like a 17-year-old kid murdering a dude with a book, whether he's kidnapped some 5-year-olds or not, that's a big deal. That's actually acknowledged in the Japanese lyrics. Hi, 2 days later me. Because I'm obsessed and I have a problem, of course I'm carrying on listening to this musical, and I've listened to the Korean version of Hurricane, and one, I am obsessed with Kwang Ho Hong's voice. Secondly, the Korean lyrics are also better than the English ones. I don't know whether it's because the Korean and Japanese lyricists, translators, are just better acquainted with the original source material and they just know this story better, or if it's that they're better lyricists than Jack Murphy. I honestly don't know what it is, but the Korean lyrics are, again, character-wise, story-wise, so much better. Also, love this man's voice! Oh my god! That's all I wanted to say. Bye. The Japanese lyrics are specific and they are character driven and they are plot driven, and that is what musical theatre is about. Yes, we love big belty notes, we love a bop, we love a tune, but that's not the point of musical theatre. It's to tell a story. If you can do that with a bop and a tune, more power to you, get that Tony Award. But if you're not telling a story in your lyrics, what's the point? I'm sorry, I'm getting really heated. I need to move on. This lack of specificity, obviously that was a specific example, but it's throughout the English lyric for this show, apart from a few exceptions. I just think musically, me as a new fan and a fan of musical theatre, I'm sitting here thinking this story could have had a better musical adaptation in terms of the music and the lyrics, especially in English, and that's a bit of a shame for me. Like I said, Hurricane was just an example. I think this is also the reason that I personally didn't like When Love Comes and Borrowed Time. I also think this is why my favourite song is Honor Bound, because Honor Bound in the English lyric is specific. It's the exception that proves the rule in this regard. Penultimate section before I get on to things that I did like, because I did like this musical, but who doesn't like a pedant on the internet? So I'm going to go into plot holes and things that they forgot. Number one, and again, on a one watch through, you probably wouldn't clock it, but it bugs me. We never see Rem learn Elle's real name or go to get Elle's real name. We do have the same scene that's in the anime where Misa goes to the campus and she sees Elle and Rem is there, but A, it's not made clear or like noted in the direction that Rem has clocked the fact that his name is different to how he introduces himself. And more importantly, neither of them at that point know that he is Elle. So there's nothing to point out the fact that that's a name that they need to remember. And in the scene where we find out that she is actually going to write Elle's name in the death note, Light doesn't say anything like, he'll be here, go find him. In that scene, it's heavily implied that Rem already knows his name, but we don't see it. I mean, it's kind of like the show's wrapping up, it's not that important, but for me, I just think it's important that we see her learn his name. If she doesn't know who Elle is and she doesn't know his name, she can't kill him, and it's the major point of the end of the show. Number two, Misa says Light's name in the interrogation room. Elle would have noticed that shit. Are you kidding me? As soon as I heard her say Light's name, I lost my shit. In this universe, that just would not happen. She would not say Elle's name, and if she did, Elle would be like, boom, we've got him. And The most frustrating thing is that she doesn't have to say his name. She could say he, she could say Kira, she could say nothing like she does in the anime, and we can just have Rem say out loud how she's working out what she wants to happen. She doesn't have to say his name. Number 3, this is kind of a dubious one, and this is one that hit me on my second watch of the whole show. I think it's questionable that Light would kill Misa without A, discovering who the first original Kira is, and B, discovering how Kira kills his victims. So, especially with the fact that she relinquishes her ownership of the Death Note and loses her memories and can't give him that information, I think it's safe to deduce that before deciding to kill her, he would just keep her locked up. Basically what I'm saying is Misa's not gonna die, and Rem kind of doesn't have to kill L. It's just something that popped in my head. And we're being a pedant on the internet, so... This was another big one that pissed me off. The Shinigami cannot be seen by people who have never touched a Death Note, and that has implications. And the writers know they have implications because they write into the script times when people are reacting to Shinigami that they can't see. So they know that, but there are just times when that's forgotten for comedic effect, and it annoys me because it's cheap. Soichiro not reacting to the fact that he's moving against his own will when Ryuk takes him by the shoulders and physically moves him. Elle not wondering why Misa has just stuck her arm out and is just casually carrying on her conversation when she's covering Ryuk's mouth because he's talking too much. If I was Elle, I'd be like, hey Misa, have you got some kind of like, you doing a little stretch? You've been working out? You going to the gym? Yes, we need some lightness in your death murder musical, but the lightness needs to make sense. That's all I'm asking for. And then the last thing, not to do with Shinigami, but the final scene, we've got the Requiem, they're dead. Misa comes on stage and scatters the sand that is Rem's body. And it's a beautiful image. But again, it makes no sense because Misa has lost her memory. She doesn't know Rem was a thing. So why would she know that the sand is dead Rem? She wouldn't. And also, just how does she get the sand? Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe I care too much. So yeah, those are some of the nitpicky things that I noticed that annoyed me. So yeah. I want to end by sharing the things that I did genuinely like, because there was a lot that I liked and a lot that I enjoyed. In general, I enjoyed watching it, so for that alone, that's why I would say it's worth checking it out. But these are things specifically that I enjoyed about the musical. Hayato Kakizawa putting distortion in his voice in Hurricane Reprise. So Hurricane Reprise happens after he's killed the FBI agents. The FBI agent is already being controlled by the Death Note. He's just written down the name of his colleagues, and Light's just like leaning against him being like, a brave new world's coming for me. That's not the lyrics at all. I can't remember what the lyrics are. And then he comes forward and it's the bit where it's like, da 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 da, and he puts this, he's like da 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 da, and like the first time he sings Hurricane he doesn't put that in, so it's like his descent into evil with like the growly rock vocals, and I was living for it and I was like yes. And then he does the crazy eyes when the guy runs into the train, and it's beautiful. Loved that moment. I liked that the show starts with a countdown from 40 seconds. I like it because if you know, you know, and if you don't, it's like, what's this about? Intriguing. I liked it. I thought it was classy. I like how Sayu, Light's sister, does not like Kira. I like that. I enjoy that. I liked that they added the police officer song after the FBI agents die. All of the police officers sing about all of the family members that they have who would be left behind, like their children and their elderly mothers and stuff. It was a really lovely moment that could easily have been missed out in this adaptation. I like that they put that in, again, kind of showing the wider ramifications for ordinary people of everything that's going on. And I think it was a lovely moment. I really loved Unbound. I love the fact that we get a moment to really see into the mind of Soichiro as the investigator and also as the father of Light, who's being accused of being Kira. The writers used the song to actually go a bit deeper with that, so it's not just I need to catch Kira to clear my son's name, but it's also discussing the implications for him if Light was Kira. Would he be able to do what he needed to do as a police officer if his son were Kira? And what kind of father would it make him if his son were Kira? And that's not so much explored in the anime, at least not overtly, and I just thought that was good writing. that was good lyric writing, and the accompaniment is so haunting. It's such a beautiful, simple melody, and it gets me. It's a beautiful, beautiful song, and if we were doing the musical theatre tag again, I think that would be my male role. If I were an old man, I would love to sing that song in a production. I mean, I can't because I'm not East Asian, but when we're allowed to do live theatre again, West End Misfits, I'm singing that song. And last thing, I love that the show ends with a requiem, which kind of mirrors all of the religious symbolism that is throughout the anime, and I would assume the manga as well. I don't know if that was deliberate or if they were just like, there's 2 dead people on stage, sounds like a requiem, but deliberate or not, I liked it. I took it as a nod to all of the religious symbolism. I think the Requiem was a good way to tie in that theme that is in the anime. So yeah, those are all the things I liked. I'm not just bashing on this, I'm just very, very passionate. So that was my review of Death Note. If you are here at this point, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I've never done a review like this before. When I watch new things that I really like, I kind of get a little bit obsessive. So this video was a good outlet for that, because I just got to live in Death Note land for 4 days straight. And I really enjoyed getting to know a new musical. I really enjoyed exploring this story, both the anime version of the story and the musical version of the story. I think Death Note as a whole, it really hit me. It hit the emo kid in me, but then also I do think it is a really interesting philosophical thought of like, what is justice? How far does one go for justice, and how can your one-minded pursuit of something with the best intention turn you into something abhorrent? I just thought it was really cool. So if you decide to check out either the anime or the musical or both, let me know in the comments and let me know what you think or what you thought. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. Would love to have you on the channel. If you know of any other shows or films that have musical adaptations that you'd like me to review in a similar way, then let me know. I would be up for potentially doing this again. We'll see how editing goes, but at this point, I'd be up for doing it again. So let me know if you have any suggestions. Stay tuned for more theatre content from a UK perspective, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye friends!